So before we get into the scripture reading, I need to give you a little bit of an introduction to what we're doing here today. Actually, I heard someone say a sermon is like a drum solo. It's a lot better if you know when it's going to end. And you're definitely going to need a roadmap for today's sermon so we can find our way to the end, because it started out as a continuation of my sermon series on the politics of the Beatitudes, and then Sam asked if I could say something about temptation and Charlie Daniels, and I said, okay. And then Adrienne reminded me that Pledge Sunday was next week and asked if I could preach about stewardship, and I said, okay. And then we had a local immigration crisis erupt this week, which took a lot of my time and energy, and so I want to tell you all about that too. So buckle up. Today you get Charlie Daniels, forgiveness, stewardship, immigration, and whatever else can be thrown in there at the last minute, so we better pray together. God, thank you for this time. Thank you for this chance to fully be ourselves and fully express ourselves and fully receive from you so that we can be not only inspired but claim the power we need to go and do your work and fulfill your aims in this community and this world. Be with my speaking and with our listening, that we may make sense of what your Spirit has for us today. Amen. So let's start with humanity versus the devil, right? A tale as old as time. You might know one such story from the South that starts like this. The devil went down to Georgia. He was looking for a soul to steal. He was in a bind because he was way behind, and he was willing to make a deal. Charlie Daniels, right? The devil went down to Georgia, tells the tale of Johnny, who outplays the devil in a fiddle contest, wins the devil's golden violin. Except when I listen to that song, I sometimes wonder if the devil really won at the end. I mean, sure, the devil might have lost the fiddle competition with Johnny, but Johnny's kind of arrogant at the end. And that's not how you beat the devil. At least that's not how Jesus did it. In the Bible, the devil appeals to Jesus' ego, but unlike Johnny, Jesus didn't take the bait. So for our second reading, I asked John Wack, well, Sam asked John Wack to offer this retelling of the story of Jesus being tempted by the devil in the wilderness. So ladies and gentlemen, I present to you John Wack in his reading of The Devil Went Down to Jordan.
As our pastor said, buckle up. The devil went down to the Jordan. He was looking for a show to steal. He was in a bind because Jesus came to find he was willing to make it real. And he came upon the Son of Man with no victuals and was praying to God. Then the devil jumped on the chance to tempt him. Said, boy, let me tell you it's hot. I guess you didn't know it, but I'm a little craver too. And kid, I'm scared this desert air might get the best of you. Now you ain't been eating your victuals, boy. But kid, your dinners do. So if you're really God's son, then turn these stones to bread and I'll butter it for you. The Lord said, I'm hungry, but that would be a sin. Because it ain't by bread man's going to be fed, but by the word God's given him. John the Baptist watched the Lord, and that's where it all starts. Because Jesus left the Jordan, and the devil hit him hard. And if he wins, we get to walk on heaven's streets of gold. But if he sins, the devil gets your soul. The devil took him up in space and said, Christ, start to throw yourself off this temple top as I'm watching from below. Because I'm sure you know that God will bring all his angels to assist. And then all would believe you're him if they saw you did something like this. When the devil finished, Jesus said, well, you're tempting God, old son. And it's written down in that book right there. That thing should never be done. Shout from the mountain what God's done. The devil ain't a match for the rising sun. You can never tempt God, did you not know? People don't live by bread alone. The devil finally said, Jesus, if you'll just worship me, then I'll give you gold that glitters, all these crowns and all you see. Jesus said, devil, just turn on back, because I'm never going to buy your scam. I love God too much, I'm going to resist. I'd suggest you better scram.
Thank you. Humanity versus the devil, right? Our literature, our music are full of these stories. Many of us here may doubt the devil's an actual creature, but our culture, our collective memory, still hold on to these stories. And I think it's because they talk about what's most important about the concept of evil. It exists. The world is not perfect, that we are only a few bad decisions away from going back on promises, abandoning who we are, betraying the people we love, just to gain something for ourselves. There's a broken part in me as an individual, as you as individuals, and also in us as a society. We love imperfectly. We are sometimes willing to sell our souls, even for good reasons. We are tempted to go back on our principles, especially in extreme situations. And it's not that we are bad people. It's that we can make really bad decisions without much provocation. Temptation is anything that entices us to use a shortcut to reach a desirable goal. So consider the news about the college admission cheating scandal that broke a couple of weeks ago. People with means bought their children's ways into elite schools. Look, good grades are desirable. They can open doors. They attract scholarships. They make parents happy. Students have to work really hard to get good grades and get into good schools. But the easiest way to get rewarded is to pay someone else off to do the work for you. It's easier to cheat. You get the rewards without having to earn them. Well, not every temptation is so obvious, right? Not every failure is so embarrassing, but every temptation presents us with a decision about right and wrong and who we will serve. So even in our faith stories, Jesus was not spared this choice. Again, it's not that we are bad people. Most bad decisions, even horrible ones, don't set out to be evil. I don't want to be cruel. I want to be comfortable. I want convenience. I want personal advancement. I want my friends and family to be successful and happy. So when we talk about greed and jealousy and resentment and lust, these are all stoked by self-interest. And I'm confronted with these choices every time I'm asked to engage in public activism. Honestly, I prefer not to be in the spotlight. I'm not the kind of person who runs toward a fight. I'm tempted to hold back, to let someone else do the work. And so this past week, I felt that temptation again to sit this one out. Wednesday night, I learned that ICE, the U.S. Immigration and Customs and Enforcement Agency, threatens to detain and deport a Montgomery County leader, a personal friend. Everyone around here calls him Coach Fofo, F-O-F-O, Coach Fofo. Coach Fofo lives and breathes soccer. And when he came to our country 20 years ago, he founded what he called the Elite Soccer Youth Development Academy, known as ACEDA, here in Silver Spring. And he also petitioned for asylum in the U.S. His petition was denied, his following appeal was denied, and Fofo stayed in the U.S., working in our school systems, mentoring the youth in Montgomery County and Prince George's County through his soccer academy. Coach Fofo was targeted for deportation in 2013. He was rounded up by ICE, he was detained. ICE then allowed him to go back to his family and remain in Maryland if he did regular check-ins. So every 3 months, every 6 months, he'd report back in with the agency. Immigration authorities finally told Fofo to bring his passport to check in last Friday. His passport from Togo. Again, he hasn't been there in 40 years. When ICE says bring a passport, it's an indication that deportment is imminent. So Fofo didn't know what to do. He has an American-born 14-year-old son. He uses soccer to teach children and youth the value of character and scholarship. This is a man who models citizenship and leadership. This is the kind of person who will go out of his way to make sure none of his athletes miss a game, even if it means going to each of their houses and picking them up and driving them to Germantown and then bringing them back home. Fofo has taught an entire generation of youth. Some of them are now grown and they're working on his soccer coaching staff. Fofo is a good man. He's a good man who does good things for people, many of whom don't have many good things in their lives. And so Coach Fofo and members from Casa de Maryland and the Sanctuary DMV Congregation Network that we're part of, and we had a couple of conference calls together on Wednesday and Thursday. I just wondered, should our churches provide sanctuary? Should Fofo go underground, go into hiding? What are the risks if he goes to his ICE check-in? And after weighing all these options, Fofo decided to accept the danger, go to his appointment. So we organized a quick rally outside of the federal building Friday morning. Much thanks to LJ and to Alan Hill for showing up, as well as the 40 or so other community activists and public leaders and clergy friends who came. Fofo is also a man of faith. And I was honored to pray with Fofo and accompany him to his check-in with his son and his lawyer, Jay Rubanda, who's the director of the Eastern Montgomery County Regional Center, was with us. Fofo was given 1 month to return to ICE with a passport and a ticket back to Togo. It's not great news. ICE at least allowed him to go home and be with his family. And so we are now activating a wider network to free Fofo. Please stay tuned. Plenty more details coming out very quickly about the next support rally in April to fill the plaza outside the federal building in support of Fofo. So, Fofo's story is an example of the Lord knows how many cases like this are going on all the time, and how our government continues a 400-year-old practice of family separation that's been going on since the first enslaved Africans came to Virginia. We've all seen the news about children taken from their parents at the border. There are now videos we've seen last week of immigrants detained behind fences, stored underneath a highway underpass in Texas. When I see this atrocious treatment, there's so much, it's easy to become numb, right? Inactive. It's hard to give up my comfort to engage with injustice, because my life is relatively easy in comparison. I'm not being attacked by ICE, and I don't want to draw attention to myself. I don't want to give up my long overdue day off to protest in the streets. So it's very easy to convince myself that there's nothing I can do. I'm not trying to be wicked. It's just that I'm selfish, and I'm tempted to let my actions be determined by my fears. Every temptation presents us with a decision about right and wrong and whom we serve. I feel badly when I cave into the temptations rather than doing what I know are better, healthier decisions. I know most of us feel badly, so how do we change directions? How can we find that mercy and forgiveness that we need to repair us, to help us do better the next time? So if you are the person asking for forgiveness, if you're on that end of the equation, you are expressing a promise. If you'd say to someone, will you forgive me? What you're really saying is, you can count on me not to do this sort of thing again. And if you are the one forgiving another, if you're the one saying, I forgive you, that lets the other person know that your future actions towards her or him are not going to be governed by that person's past behavior. So rather than being burdened by the ongoing presence of anger and resentment, this interplay of forgiving and being forgiven releases us from hostility so that we can begin to grow in a healthier direction. The grip of resentment, when you're stuck in that, you remain a victim. And so when Jesus says, blessed are the merciful, he offers some hope that those of us who clutch onto our disappointments and our betrayals can find some release, that we can find some ultimate happiness. Well, forgiveness is not just about individual temptation. Forgiveness has a collective dimension, a political perspective, a systemic standpoint. After all, Jesus teaches us to pray saying, forgive us our sins, not forgive me my sins. So since the late 1980s, the language of apology, forgiveness has appeared with increasing frequency on the political scene. Nations, religions like the Roman Catholic Church began asking for forgiveness for historic evils. Collectives can commit themselves to act in ways not determined by the wrongs they inflicted in the past. Communities are capable of releasing wrongdoers from cycles of retribution. Organizations can refuse to act on hostile motives grounded on revenge. And we know it, we see it. When one group shows mercy to another group, we find less hostility, more willingness for people to work towards cooperative goals. You see, our faith challenges me to wrestle with my place in an us that needs God's forgiveness. Each of us inhabits larger webs of injustice that cry out for mercy. Do we enjoy safety because we remain silent while our neighbors suffer? Whether they're next door or across the border or on the other side of the world. Do we possess land that was stolen from others years or centuries before? Do we have advantages in society due to a history of oppression? Do we let tons of food go into dumpsters while others go hungry? Do we buy and wear clothes that were made by exploited children in sweatshops? So when I think about the systems that we inhabit, I shudder because our systems are laced with the rat poison of injustice and evil. So if we're going to follow this Jesus who resisted temptation in the wilderness, this Jesus who blessed the meek and merciful, this Jesus who forgave the very people who were inflicting the worst kind of harm on him, if we are going to follow this Jesus, then we must be ready to radically expand our sense of responsibility. So, do you think an enforcement agency like ICE could ever show mercy? Understood, ICE is acting on despicable immigration policies and methods of a merciless administration. The over-criminalization of our law, the hamstringing of judges who show too much leniency, the ill-conceived and ineffective war on drugs, our vast, expensive, overcrowded prison system convince me that governors, that presidents, that those who have the power to do so should revive the American tradition of mercy. Our national, our state, our local leaders must stop being silent and neglectful and irrelevant observers of cruel and unjust processes and show us a different way. And if they don't, then we need to remind them of that at voting time. The truth is, we all want mercy. And it's there for us. God extends mercy and comfort to all. But the mercy isn't given just so we can feel better. God offers mercy as a way for us to restore our relationships. God offers mercy so we can extend mercy to others. Mercy is our continual outpouring to others. That's part of what churches are supposed to do. Part of what we're supposed to be. Communities of mercy that give mercy before receiving mercy. The church is defined by the quality of its mercy, our ability to restore and humanize those who need to know some kindness. It's our time. It's time for us to be known in the community as defenders of the poor, as hospitals of healing, as refuges of rescue. It's time. And as people of faith, we must be people of mercy, pouring this healing oil of kindness and nurturing others in the womb of love. That's the church I want to worship in. That's the church I want to lead. And as I talk with many of you, especially over the past 2 or 3 weeks, I get the strong sense that you want that too. And now for the pitch. If we really want to be and do all of this, then we make some sacrifices to our comfort and our convenience. You know, it takes a lot of time and a lot of energy to organize for change. It takes patient and tenacious activism, and it takes money, lots of money. So for example, let's imagine someone comes to us and needs to live in sanctuary until an immigration appeal is resolved. Say that person is in sanctuary in a local church for a year, or 2, or more. Who will supply the food? Who will financially support that person's family now that there's no income? Who will keep the person active and inspired? Who will help pay the legal fees and the court costs when a person in sanctuary can't work? Who will help with medical when a person has no insurance? Who will coordinate safety? Well, it's easy to do that for a week or 2. Who will do it for a year or 2? By the way, we have someone in our DMV network living in sanctuary right now at Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Church. Her name is Rosa. This is just one person. The Sanctuary DMV network is representing 2 others this coming Thursday in Baltimore. What's going to happen when more people need the support of the Sanctuary network? Who's going to step up? We are. We are. Of course we are. And it takes a great many resources to make that happen. And so I'm asking each of us to participate in our Pledge Sunday next week and make a financial commitment to Christ Congregational Church. Because yes, we have some internal aspirations this year. Yes, we're looking to increase some staff hours and compensation. And yes, we need to cover our debt service for the social hall. We need to take care of ongoing building maintenance issues. And I believe you're going to contribute to those issues. But you know what else? I need your participation in these outward issues of justice and activism. I need you on the streets. I need you in the public meetings. I need us to think about how we will stand with immigrant families who might need our ongoing physical and financial support. So please consider how much you can give. I mean, really, prayerfully, actively. Think before you commit next week. By the way, if you are new to our tradition, we do not get support from other organizations. As a matter of fact, we give about $70,000, $75,000 a year to others. Whatever we pay for, however, we set and fund our own priorities. And it all relies on the generosity of donors. So the truth is, like most public organizations, we here at Christ Congregational Church do not have the money and we do not have the volunteers to do the things we say we want to do. That's the truth. We get stuck. And so, friends, members, CCC, it's time, please. It's time to do more. It's time to grow into the congregation we claim to be. And while I want us to give more money, it's not just about the money. I'm really talking about choosing the way of gratitude, the way of hope, the way of mercy, the way that we are going to show up, not just with our lips, but with our lives. Okay, Charlie Daniels, check. Temptation, forgiveness, and politics, check. Immigration, check. Stewardship, check. We covered a lot of terrain in a short amount of time. The sermon's going to be online, so you can watch it or read it again. Let me know what you think. I'm, of course, always willing to keep this conversation going. This time I invite us to a moment of silence, a moment to listen together as a community, and then Pastor Gloria will lead us in our pastoral.